one of the apprentices, who was in charge of talking to customers, came and greeted them. It was a young, healthy-looking man, saying that they are quite busy that day. Even if you put in the order today, it will take some time. Inside, the apprentices are all excited looking at a sword made from a quadhorn's horn, and they offering themselves to work on the jewel slot. He adds that one that succeeds will become the deputy owner for the day. The owner, Michael of the smithy, allows them to try, yet even after they takes turn, they fail to even make a scratch into the sword. As Michael mad at his apprentices, Jiwon sneaks into the smithy and says that he will give it a try. Michael underestimates Jiwon, saying that even his apprentices weren't able to do it. Yet, with his point finger, Yua stabs the little sword, making a hole in it, spinning it around, and claims that he become the deputy owner for the day. But, as Jiwon plays with the sword, it crumbles to pieces, surprising the whole smithy, and makes Michael angry with him. Though he is mad because the cost of the horn for the material is so expensive and Jiwon breaks it just like that. So he frowned, and apologizes for what he did, because he fails to break only the part where it's needed, instead he breaks the whole thing. That makes Michael angry, asking Jiwon to compensate him for the material. So he takes out a horn that comes from a pentahorn, and Michael gladly accepts it. He even blushes looking at the massive horn. Then, he tells his apprentices to close the door, and takes Jiwon to his personal smithy and expresses that it's the best facility in the whole Gorgon region. Jiwon took out another horn. The pentahorn had 5 horns, so he obviously had more, but it didn't make sense to Michael. What's more is that Jiwon wants to make a scabbard with it. It was a pentahorn they were talking about. The material seemed like overkill just for a scabbard. Jiwon lent him the sword. After Michael looked at its status, he moaned, the Frost Dragon sword. However, he thought how it was a shame that this sword was only a replica. However, the sword began to cry. Michael dropped it in shock and it landed on top of the Garnax horn. The sword then vibrated even harder as it opened its mouth and began devouring the horn. Now Michael knows that it's a spirit weapon. The Frost Dragon sword began glowing as it finished eating the Garnax horn. He expresses how he is witnessing a lot of fascinating things today, adding that the sword is evolving. But now they don't have the material anymore as the material had been devoured by the sword. And Jiwon says that it's okay, adding that he has more, then took another one out from his backpack. Michael stood in front of the Garnax horn as it was the first time he was given a chance to process a Garnax horn. So, Michael asks Jiwon with what he can do to help, shape or form, where he answers that he will leave it to Michael. Though he looked surprised, he proclaims as the Master of Dawn will show Jiwon what he is capable of. At the same time, within Gorgon Castle, a middle-aged man in clean, formal clothing coughed as he drank his tea. The man in dark clothes bowed his head as he kneeled in front of the middle-aged man, reporting that they lost their target, adding that he doesn't know how his team got defeated. He just got knocked out and he woke up lying on a roof. The man in black robe is 3rd stage adapter. If a 3rd stage adapter with a master level, high-rank stealth skill was in hiding, it was hard for even higher-ranking adapters to find out. But the target had found him and easily knocked him out without him knowing. The middle-aged man said maybe he was at the 5th stage. If he was at that stage, the man needed to be prepared, adding that they'll gather more men, and determined to find him no matter the cost. At that moment, a deep thud came from the underground cell below the castle. It was a slight tremor, but the middle-aged man, who was a high-ranked adapter, was able to feel it. Then he heard a faint, long scream coming from below. He frowned. "Master, please hang on a while longer." Next day at the bar, middle-aged men were heard talking loudly from within the saloon. At the center was an old hologram machine that was showing a broadcast. The person on the broadcast was a pink-haired girl with a small horn. The video then showed a man solo fighting a giant frost dragon. The man kept stabbing it over and over endlessly. His face was censored so that the product information would not be leaked. The men at the bar rumbled while watching. At that moment, the door to the saloon slammed open and a woman walked in. It was Mino. She walked briskly to the bar and sat down. Her thin waistline and fair-skinned face immediately attracted all the attention of the men in the saloon. The men were shocked and scared by the vicious energy pressure that Mino was releasing and ran out. Mino laughed bitterly. She thought about Jiwon and felt bitter, so she drinks up to her heart content. Then, the owner of the saloon appeared. It was Aunt Claire saying that the bad girl, Mino, is bad for her business. Mino was too drunk to talk straight, but she kept on mumbling. Claire narrowed her eyes. She knew Mino well. Mino was like this since they met at the Tower of Nightmares. She was weak, but she had a temper. In addition, she also liked to prank people and cause trouble. She wasn't bad, but she always got the people around her into trouble. Claire brushes her hair, saying that she should be involved with Jiwon anymore as Claire thoughts that he is dangerous. Before Mino could reply, a message energy made from spiritual power shot through the window of the saloon and reached Mino. She checked the sender, Carlton, Northern Gate Captain. At that moment, Mino felt a terrifying pressure from all sides. One of the men walked up to her and asked, "Are you the Witch of Massacre?" Mino pulled out a dagger from her clothes despite her drunken stupor. The man closed upon her, grabs her hand, answers as the man smiled ominously, and says that he need her to do something for them. Back at the smithy, Michael is giving up on crafting the horn, as he evaluates that the materials level is too high for him to process. So Jiwon put his hand on Michael's eyes, saying that it's important to be able to see. Michael's eyes glows bright, and the material in front of him starts to liquefy in front of his face. That took him into a world where he can see the form of the material he processes for real. It took a form of a monster as it attacks them. Jiwon tells Michael to get himself together, since he said he would help Jiwon. He is terrified with what happened in front of his eyes. He thought that it must have been a dream and looked for the exit door, and of course he ran away, leaving Jiwon sighing. As Michael opens the door, asking for help, what he sees that supposedly his apprentices are skeletons as they are asking whether the smith master has done smelting. The panic Michael witnesses another being that speaks to him, calling him as the foolish one, and tells him that he doesn't deserve to see that place yet. With his hammer and chisel, he was facing the monsters without any skills. The monster attacked Jiwon and he attacked back. The monster screamed and spat blood out from its body, but it didn't seem to be bothered. It was enjoying it. Among such chaos, Michael was shocked and afraid. In the end, Jiwon broke the horn and they ended up talking about the past event regarding the owner of the smithy. Jiwon then touched the horn with his hand. The surface swirled as if it was reacting to his touch. In the next moment, something unbelievable happened in front of Michael. The particles that his finger touched were dug up as if something had eaten them. Jiwon shook his head. Michael focused closer. That reminds him to when he learned smithy in his younger days, as his master explained to him that he won't exceed human limits. That makes him instead determined to become like those mares anyway. In the end, he asks Jiwon with what he need to do with fighting against the world. Jiwon tells Michael to look carefully, not relying on the system but with his own eyes instead. That's when he sees it, the true world that he knows shouldn't be exist. As Jiwon dashed towards the spirit beast, that makes Michael fire up to pick up the chisel again. With all of what he has, he starts crafting the horn again. Later that day, they finally able to finish making the scabbard for the spirit sword. And Jiwon decides to name the newly awakened spirit sword as Lone Wolf, and they write it on the scabbard. So they bid their farewell, and Michael asks Jiwon with how he looked like in Jiwon eyes, which he says that Michael looks like a human, when in fact, Jiwon able to see that all of the people in chaos look like skeleton. As he goes around the town, Mino comes back, so he asks her what's up with her that makes her following him up. So she reveals that she is intending to kill him, adding that she would have a good life by taking all of the spirit stone Jiwon has. She also gives him bag of clothes, saying that it's her way of saying sorry. Then she asks what he is going to do now. At this point, Jiwon already knows on how to meet the mayor, so he intending to meet him to asks about the Illusion 3 and how to get to the abyss, adding that he is not coming back after, saying that after all he is a human, which makes her mad, asking who does he think he is to say such a thing. It hurts her. Even though the people of the chaos is not as brave as Jiwon, she claims that they are definitely human too. Though, no matter how many times they're saved, the truth remains the same, because of what Question shows him is the true essence of that world. A world where numbers and data rule, and where there are people who would sell their own soul in order to raise their numbers. That's when Mino breaks up the barrier, asking Jiwon whether she looked like a human or not, as she bid her farewell, saying that they won't seeing each other ever again. Her appearance changes, and she looks like a human again. The people of Chaos supposedly are a dead soul that came to Chaos after their death in the tower. But Jiwon is different. He comes to Chaos by exceeding the limit of what human can do. He broke the ceiling set by the tower and climbs himself to Chaos. Going back to the bar, Mino wonders how can things turn out like that way as she opens the door. The bar is in shambles and a group of people are waiting her inside, with Claire held as hostage. They are from the Forbidden Heaven clan. The leader is the elder called Janya. He asks how can Mino comes back alone, where she takes out her dagger, saying that he is more naive than he seems, asking whether he ever seen a witch keep her promise, adding that a certain person won't be coming. She attacks them, saying that that person is only going to destroy Chaos, and Janya expresses how that the witch has gone insane. He releases his shadow to fight her and she defeats them easily as she strikes the last one. Her dagger shot through towards Janya, and he picks up his sword to counter her attack. that lands on her, injuring her. On top of that, Claire also held hostage while the fight is happening. On the last attempt, she performs her ultimate attack, releasing 8 daggers simultaneously. Yet, Janya destroys all of them easily, expresses how cute her technique are. After that, he threatened to shred her himself as she falls down, losing her consciousness. The only thing she can remember is Jiwon, and now she wants to go back to the past, to follow him back then. And she thinks how she hates this type of development, as Janya going to strike her with his sword. Suddenly, there is an attack coming from the sky, that Janya able to defend with his sword. Jiwon comes, standing beside Mino, as she says why he was there, instead of destroying the world. Which he says that the clothes she gave him don't fit, so he gives it back. Meanwhile, Janya realizes that Jiwon is the one who took the spirit stone, as his men laughing with the thoughts that Jiwon saves them up some trouble looking for him. Jiwon asks Janya whether they are the guys who's with Mayor, tells them get the mayor to come there. Janya thoughts that Jiwon might be crazy, as Mino tells him that Janya is a 4th stage adapter. Now, they start swarming and together they attack Jiwon, shouting how they will teach him a lesson. Though, Jiwon performs his minimal stabs towards Janya, but he manages to dodge. Realizes that Janya can't defeat Jiwon. He takes Claire and threatens to kill her. Mino asks Jiwon to save her, yet instead it confuses him, with the thoughts that he just need to cut whoever's in his way. So Mino grabs him, as she cries that Claire is a human. That shocked Jiwon for a moment. While he is looking at their true essence, Claire screams, telling him to start attacking. In the end, Jiwon stabs the roof that makes a pillar of light, shooting up beyond the sky. That also destroy the barrier they previously deployed, notify the guard in Gorgon. That instant, Carlton arrives with his men, greeting Jiwon and asks what the hell is going on. Jiwon expresses how he comes at the right time, as he claims that Janya is breaking the law, adding that they intend to use the bar as their foothold to try to destroy the world by scheming with the mayor. Though Jiwon is the one that actually wants to destroy chaos. In an instant, Carlton uses his authority and uses silver restraints to save the day.